going on, everybody? Ratchet Wrenches is back for another video. We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to explain the differences between coilovers and then lowering springs. So pretty much we're going to show some pros and cons of each, so you get an idea if you're in the market for coilovers or some kind of suspension aspect, lowering springs, air ride. We're going to go over some pros and cons for you, so you get a better understanding and a better idea of what you're really looking for. But if you're new to the channel and you're just stopping by, I appreciate you for clicking on this video. Please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, comment, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you as always. And without further ado, let's get into Ratchet Wrenches.
Alright, what's going on, guys? If you don't already know, my name is Wes. This is my 2002 Mustang GT. So my setup currently is Eibach lowering springs. I'm running 1.7 inch drop in the front and 1.5 inch drop in the rear. So this gives it a relative aggressive stance, which I prefer. So one pro for the lowering springs is you can go anywhere from about half an inch up to about 3 inches for a drop overall. So in my case, I'm going a little lower in the front, but that's my personal preference. Now, if you're going more for just a better suspension overall, but you want to keep the ride height somewhat higher, if that's your personal preference, you can do that with like half an inch or 1 inch drop. Or if you want to go relatively low, you might want to spend a little more money, but you can get a very high quality lowering spring and go fairly low and keep your ride quality pretty good as well. So one thing with the lowering springs I want to include is once you buy these and install them, you can't go back. It's not like coilovers where you can adjust them. The lowering spring is a set spring. Alright, so a second pro I think goes along with these lowering springs is the ride quality overall. So I didn't want a coilover setup where everything was pretty hard when you hit bumps and potholes and whatnot. I wanted something where it absorbs a little better, which is lowering springs. So overall, these absorb bumps relatively well. Now, if you're going on a not so well paved road and there's a lot of bumps, you're going to feel it, but it's more of a springy bounce versus coilovers. It's really going to just do a hard bam, bam, bam. So these absorb the bumps much better, but it is a little bouncier. But overall, I enjoy the ride quality with these lowering springs. Alright guys, so we're going to go for a little test drive in the 2002 Mustang with the Eibach lowering springs, and we're going to show you kind of in the car how the car handles and how it drives over bumps. So we're going to go out and into the elements real quick and see what this thing really does on the road. So
alright, we're going to go around a corner and kind of show you guys what the roll feels like.
There's a lot of body roll in this car. You can definitely feel yourself move back and forth. I should get upgraded seats so it really plants you in like Austin has, but that's down the road. Right a little bit. And obviously, the faster you go, the more you're going to feel of the road itself. You're going to feel all the bumps. If you're going slower, it'll be less dramatic, but we're going like 45 right now, so we're feeling a good amount of the road here. There's a lot of bumps here in a turn, so see how it handles. Oh yeah, you're going to feel that. It's still, in my opinion, more pleasant than coilovers when they really slam the whole car and you feel it throughout your whole body. This is more of a springy reaction, so I personally like it, but other people may prefer the coilovers. This road in particular, there's a lot of big bumps. They really got to pave this one.
There's one huge bump that we're going to take at the same speed relatively, and you're going to be able to feel / hear the total difference. You might not be able to feel it per se, but like you'll see it. It's coming up right here.
Oh, yep. That's the one. So one last pro I want to mention with these lowering springs is it's very cost effective, especially for this model Mustang, and in general pretty much. They're relatively budget friendly. You can get just the lowering springs themselves and keep your stock shocks and struts, so that's where you're going to save a lot of money. In my case, my car it's a 2002, so there was a decent amount of rust in there, and the shocks and struts were pretty much blown out, so I said might as well just buy everything entirely. So that's what I did. I went Eibach Pro damper kit as well as the Eibach lowering springs, so I went all out, and that's what you want to do if you have an older car, in my opinion. But like I said, you can just do the springs themselves, and that will save you some money if you're on a budget. But overall, you can get these springs fairly budget friendly. So to go along with the springs being affordable, obviously this goes for pretty much any car part. You can spend less money and get a decent ride quality, but also you can spend a lot more money and get the best ride quality you possibly can with lowering springs. So it's really up to your judgment of how much money you want to put into this. So in my case, I did kind of a mid-range shock and strut and spring setup. I saved up a good amount of money for this. I just wanted to do it all in one shot. Now, if you're just looking for springs themselves and keep the stock shocks and struts, then you can do that. You'll save a good amount of money, but if you want to get the best quality for your springs, you're going to want to spend a little more money for top-of-the-line brands such as Eibach that are known worldwide. So on to the cons now. One thing I do not like about lowering springs in general is once you buy that spring, you can't adjust it at all. It's a set height versus coilovers. You can adjust them to your liking. So the springs, I have that 1.7 inch drop in the front and 1.5 in the rear. I can't change that, that's set. So some people like that. Some people want to adjust it depending on their daily driving needs. But for me, this is kind of a weekend car now, so I just wanted to have a kind of a set ride height and good suspension, so I went with the lowering springs. One more con I have for these Eibach lowering springs is, I know I said earlier in the pros that I like the ride quality overall, but if you're on a shitty road, right here, oh yeah, especially New Jersey with a lot of potholes, you're gonna feel a lot of the bumps. Just whenever you lower a car in general, you're gonna feel the whole road entirely versus if you're riding a stock height. So if you're on a shitty road, you're gonna be going up and down with the lowering spring, since it does absorb the bumps more versus coilovers. Sometimes I'd say it's 50-50. Sometimes I like the lowering springs when it absorbs, but if it's too much or too bouncy on a shitty road, you're really gonna feel it, and it's just not a comfortable ride. Alright guys, so overall, lowering springs are a great budget-friendly modification to your car. You can either lower it aggressively or non-aggressively, and you can also pay a lot of money to a little money. So it's all up to your preference, but overall, it's a great budget-friendly mod to lower your car and give it that aggressive stance and better ride quality. Now, Austin's going to explain his coilovers on his GTI.
Alright, for those of you who don't know, I'm Austin, and this is my 2008 Volkswagen GTI, and I'm currently on Coilovers, the FK Street Line series, and as you can see, they're pretty low, and that's how I like it. So one pro, which is the most important pro, is the fact that it's fully adjustable. It just gives you that ease of access to change it higher, lower. So if you're going into winter time, if you have winter, I don't know, some people in Cali or whatever, but if you have a winter time, you could raise it up to put your snow tires so you're not snow plowing. Yeah, it's fully adjustable. It's very easy to adjust. You just put a jack stand under it, take a little spanner wrench, and you just twist it. Super easy. So another thing I want to add to that is you could really achieve any look you're really looking for. So if you're looking for that stance boy and you're going to car shows and whatnot, you could drop it so you don't have to spend an insane amount of money on air ride systems. You could really drop it down. But if you want to be aggressive looking but more of a daily driver, you could raise it up just enough where it's aggressive looking but still very comfortable to drive. So another pro that I consider very important is the fact that it really improves the performance, and by improving the performance I mean really the handling. So you could really hug the road, so you don't have that body roll because you have a lower center of gravity. So you could take turns at high speed and really ride them out and get nice velocity going out of it, like a race car if you're really trying to do that. But a lot of people use coilovers to do autocross. I know a lot of people take that very seriously, and you could win some money with it. So unfortunately, I really don't have any more pros for this. The cons really outweigh the pros. I know a lot of people are going to say otherwise, but other than the looks and the performance aspect, there's a lot of cons to go along with them. So let's get into that. The first con, I would say, is the fact that if I were to have 4 people in this car, my rear will rub, and the inner fender liner, which I should take out, a lot of people do just to free up some room, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to get rust in the body and nothing like that. But it will sag, and when you're driving and you hit a bump, that wheel will hit the inner fender and just create a noise that just makes you want to cringe. That's one huge con that I think. So the second con is mine, since like Wes was saying, coilovers hit bumps and they really give you that like stiff ride. It's not fun. When you're driving on the highway and you hit a bump at maybe 60 miles or plus an hour, you feel it throughout the whole body. And people that haven't been in my car before and I'm taking them for their first drive or whatever, they're always like, wow, that's so much different. It's so much momentum going through your whole body. It's just different than, you know, his lowering springs that give you that comfortable ride. So this is my 2008 GTI. Like I said in the beginning, it's on coilovers. So now we're gonna see the difference in the ride quality between these and the lowering springs. All right, so this is the roll. You hug it a lot more than.
Oh yeah. I barely moved in my seat.
Alright, here comes a bigger turn.
See how much body roll there is. He's taking at like 40 miles an hour. Oh, not much.
No body roll at all.
These seats are better though because they have this side piece here and they're
really
cloths
nice.
versus the leather, so you're not sliding around, which I like. Paddling, bumping.
I mean, over time you like that.
Yep.
But over time you really get used to it. I've grown accustomed to it that I don't even realize when I'm hitting bumps.
This is the bad part here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hit the turn. Oh my god.
Oh goodness.
How enjoyable.
Very.
Alright, we've made it to the notorious bumpy road.
Yeah, so the bump that he hit, I think it was at like 40 miles an hour. I'm going to do the same thing.
Oh, I feel
And
the little
good
ones
luck,
even more.
Wes.
Yeah.
I don't think you've hit this bump with me yet, but it's pretty brutal. It's right here.
Alright.
Ready for it?
3, 2, 1. I mean, my car, you like went up and down more.
Yeah,
but
because
you're
the springy. Mine, you just hit it and just keep going.
It's just
yours kind of like springs out of it to really like, you know, compensate for the bump, but mine just.
No, it just takes it straight up.
One last con is that they're pricey, and that includes maintenance. So first off, buying the right coilovers is pricey. Here, this was my first car. I was in high school when I got it, and I went middle of the road coilovers, and I highly recommend investing in higher quality ones because here in Jersey, there's potholes everywhere, there's bumps, our roads are horrible. So my coilovers really took a beating. My struts blew out multiple times. I had to replace that. So that's another cost thing that you really don't even want to spend, but you know, you have to do it to keep the car running. So one last con that really stands out to me is the fact that if you blow out your strut because you hit a pothole or the bumps or whatever the case may be, and you're driving, you have to be really careful of your turning radius because if you turn too tight, your wheel, or your tire I should say, will rub up against the fender and start chipping away your paint. And you see a lot of people that get the bacon fenders and they'll put like stickers over it to cover up their damage because their car's too low or whatnot. So you definitely want to preserve your paint and just make sure you get the car off the road as quickly as possible so you get a new strut on there so you're back in action and you won't have to worry about it sagging down and really taking a beating on your vehicle. So overall, my personal opinion is coilovers have a lot of cons, but there can be a lot of pros, especially if you get higher quality ones like BC Racing or K&W brand. They're very pricey, so if you can afford them, by all means, definitely invest in higher quality ones. The sagging issue would be away if I had quality, you know, coilovers. So I really recommend if you're gonna go the coilover route, just research, invest, and you'll have a blast. All right, guys, that's a wrap for today's video. And I gotta sneeze, but it's not coming up. We hope you enjoyed. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you're returning, give it some love. Even for the new people, give it some love. Comment down below if you guys have any questions or anything you want to add, any pros that you've experienced, any cons that you've experienced. Now, if you guys have been following us for the GTI content, I'll list down below where to buy the coilovers and what website and whatnot. And if you've been following us for the Mustang, we'll list that down below. We'll list the exact ones we have on this. So if you want to have your own, it's right down below for you. But please give us a follow on our Instagram. We'll tag that down below as well. And we'll see you next time. Peace.